So as you all know, Michael Wolff's new book titled Fire and Fury was released this week, and it gives readers an inside account of Donald Trump's administration, and it essentially confirms what we already suspected, that the White House, under the leadership of Donald Trump, is in total disarray. Now, personally, I haven't seen Americans this fired up over a book since the release of the Harry Potter series, but the reason why this book is so incredibly popular and is now selling out everywhere, at least in physical copies, is because it received a lot of free advertising from none other than Donald Trump himself, because he gave this book a huge boost when his lawyers tried to suppress the book's release by threatening to sue the publisher, which then prompted them to actually release it several days earlier. And once it was released, expectedly, it became a bestseller. Now, the book would undoubtedly be popular even if Donald Trump didn't inadvertently give it a gigantic push, but even Fox News is questioning whether or not Donald Trump might have mishandled the situation and made it even worse for himself.
Has the administration brought more attention to this book than the media itself?
Well, the president, and he's a Queens guy, he's a counterpuncher. When people punch, he punches back, especially in a book like this, which is just such thin garbage.
In other words, yes. So, needless to say, this book has become a huge headache for the president. And as White House correspondent for CNN, Abby Phillip, explains, this book is really starting to get to the president. It's really bothering him.
Last night, the president really had on his mind this book that has roiled his presidency, roiled his administration. He has not let this issue go after the book was published a few days early, despite his legal threats trying to shut it down. The president wrote in a tweet, let me read that to you, what you had just a moment ago. Michael Wolff, the author of the book, is a total loser who made up stories in order to sell this really boring and untruthful book. He used sloppy Steve Bannon, who cried when he got fired and begged for his job. Now, Sloppy Steve has been dumped like a dog by almost everyone. Too bad. Sloppy Steve is that new moniker that the president has given his former chief strategist, someone who was incredibly close to his campaign and also to his administration. Steve Bannon was recorded in this book making derogatory comments about the president, and afterwards the president really slammed him in a harsh statement, and that anger clearly has not gone away.
So what she's saying is totally believable because Donald Trump keeps tweeting about this book, and he keeps tweeting about Sloppy Steve, which I think is a hilarious moniker. But let's go back to why this book is popular in the first place. So first and foremost, we learned about what Steve Bannon said about Donald Trump Jr.'s meeting with a Russian lawyer. He called it treasonous. And he allegedly told Michael Wolff that, quote, they're going to crack Don Jr. like an egg on national TV, referring, of course, to prosecutors. And additionally, CNN reports Bannon also reportedly told Wolff that special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into the Trump campaign's potential ties to Russia is centered on money laundering, saying that the White House is sitting on a beach trying to stop a Category 5 hurricane. You realize where this is going. This is all about money laundering. Mueller chose senior prosecutor Andrew Weissman first, and he is a money laundering guy, Bannon reportedly said. Their path to fucking Trump goes right through Paul Manafort, Don Jr., and Jared Kushner. It's as plain as the hair on your face. So, I mean, obviously, that's huge. For someone like Steve Bannon, who has been close to Donald Trump during the campaign and his early months as president, you know, that to say something like that it's pretty explosive. Now, in response to Steve Bannon, Donald Trump stated, Steve Bannon has nothing to do with me or my presidency. When he was fired, he not only lost his job, he lost his mind. So this led to Steve Bannon then issuing an apology to the Trump family, referring to Trump Jr. as a patriot and good person, and he also reiterated that his support for the president is unwavering. Now, unfortunately for Sloppy Steve, the White House actually rejected his apology. But I mean, besides the Steve Bannon thing, the book gives us so much more insight into other aspects of the Trump presidency. And as Michael Wolff, the author himself, puts it, really it seems like people within Trump's administration don't really like him all that much.
Everybody in this White House, and I keep saying this 100% because it is 100% of the people closest to the president, to Donald Trump, believe that there is something wrong here, something fundamentally wrong, something that scares them. As a matter of fact, they went from, if there is any reason they stay in the White House now, it's because they are scared. They believe they have a responsibility to the American people.
Now, while I am inclined to believe Michael Wolff, I do find this weird, because if people around Trump don't like him, but they supported him during his campaign, I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. The writing was always on the wall. Donald Trump was always a wackadoo crazy person, so the fact that you're only now realizing that, I mean, it shows how stupid really the people around Trump are. So that to me is a really weird part about this book that was revealed. Now, the book also reveals that Trump allegedly didn't know who former House Speaker John Boehner was. It also states that Melania Trump was reportedly horrified by Donald Trump's victory and that she cried and not tears of joy. Trump also initially didn't want John Bolton to be the UN ambassador because of his mustache. Rupert Murdoch reportedly called Trump an effing idiot, and Trump reportedly referred to then-acting Attorney General Sally Yates as the C word. And probably my favorite revelation about this book is how a staffer was trying to tell Donald Trump about the Constitution, but they couldn't keep his interest, saying, "I got as far as the Fourth Amendment before his finger is pulling down on his lip and his eyes are rolling back in his head." You know, that's really embarrassing. Now, as someone who loathes Donald Trump, I really, really want everything in this book to be true, but the fact of the matter is that we have to be objective and acknowledge that these are second and third-hand accounts, and a lot of this book largely is based on hearsay. So we do have to take that into account, and we can't just jump on this because it's an easy opportunity to embarrass Donald Trump, because I don't think the book is 100% accurate, and Trump's administration is vehemently rejecting everything in this book. Trump actually went so far as to deny that Michael Wolff even had access to the White House, and this is how Trump's advisor, Stephen Miller, describes the book.
The book is best understood as a work of very poorly written fiction. The author is a garbage author of a garbage book. The allegations and insinuations in this book, which are a pure work of fiction, are nothing but a pile of trash through and through. Page after page after page of the book is pure false. I see sections of the book where events I participated in are described, and I have firsthand knowledge that as they're described, they're completely and totally fraudulent. So one of the other tragedies of this grotesque work of fiction is its portrayal of the president. The reality is the president is a political genius.
So you pretty much get the point. Now, we'll go back to that interview in a second, and I'll show you more of that because it's just amazing. But basically, to suggest that this book is purely a work of fiction, I think is preposterous. But at the same time, we'd be unreasonable to not acknowledge that there are inaccuracies that have been pointed out.
So we were talking before the break about some inaccuracies in the book, but not complete. Were you, first of all, in a rush to get this to print for a lot of reasons?
Well, yeah, I mean, this book was reported and written in less than a year.
Yeah, okay.
So, remember, this history is moving pretty fast.
Yeah. So your kind of critics here will have some material to work with. There's misspellings. I know, for example, I'll just speak to the part where we are characterized in it, and there was a scene where Ivanka wanted to talk to Donald about women, and he kept saying, what? And then you say in the book that Ivanka shouted at him. It was actually me. I said, Donald, women. And I had to make an hourglass to show him women. That was the only way he could understand the word woman. And so there's inaccuracies like that. I guess, do you worry
which
that your
point?
critics...
I'm not even sure which point was that.
That was at the lunch at the White House.
At the lunch.
But you know, the bigger point is those.
Your critics run with that.
Yeah, they run with these little specific things, but getting a part of a story wrong here or getting something else.
And sometimes you're dependent on your sources there, and sometimes your sources.
Right.
Now, I don't want to say who my source was in that particular thing, except that.
But sometimes the sources get it, a little off.
Okay.
So on one hand, we shouldn't take everything in this book as gospel, because as you saw right there, there's inaccuracies, and I do trust Mika Brzezinski. But on the other hand, to suggest that it's fiction is also absurd. I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, but leans more towards Michael Wolff. I think that Michael Wolff probably rushed to get this to sale because, I mean, let's face it, he knew he'd be a multimillionaire once this book came out. So I get it. You rushed. Human error is a problem. But of course, when you have hearsay and second and third accounts of people talking about Donald Trump, I mean, of course, there are going to be problems with this book. But again, overall, I mean, Donald Trump's administration is essentially maintaining that everything in this book is made up. But that's absurd because, one, Steve Bannon wouldn't have apologized to the president if the things he said weren't true, and certainly Donald Trump wouldn't be as angry with Steve Bannon and wouldn't have called him Sloppy Steve if he didn't believe that Michael Wolff was told these things by Steve Bannon. So Donald Trump essentially is contradicting himself here. Second of all, Trump wouldn't have moved to suppress the book if it was fictional. He probably just wouldn't care about it if it was all made up. Third, and finally, I think the most important point is that the revelations in this book aren't that surprising. They're right in line with what we've come to expect based on various leaks from the White House. So these aren't things that are surprising. So the book probably isn't 100% accurate, but it's certainly not fiction, and knowing that Donald Trump obviously is a pathological liar, for him to say it's fiction means that, yeah, there's probably definitely truth to it. So we should be careful here and question some of the revelations and not lose our objectivity because we have an opportunity to embarrass Donald Trump. If you want to embarrass Donald Trump, all you have to do is wait a day or two, and there will be several more opportunities to embarrass him. Now, I want to get back to the interview I discussed with Stephen Miller and Jake Tapper, because even though he was there to shut down some of the claims made by Michael Wolff in this book, that interview went completely off the rails, and it was absolutely glorious to watch. So I will leave you with that. Enjoy.
The only person who's called himself a genius in the last week is the president. But
which because happens to be a true statement.
Okay.
A self-made billionaire who revolutionized reality TV and who has changed the course of our politics.
He's watching and he's happy that you said that. But
you know, Jake, you can be condescending.
I'm not being condescending. I'm trying to get to the point that Steve Bannon.
You can be condescending. That was a snide remark. You're sure he's watching and he's happy. Let me tell you something.
Why is that
your
snide?
network? You can be as condescending as you want. It's part of your MO. But listen, you can have 24/7.
I have no idea why you're attacking me.
Well, I'll explain to you.
My point is,
I'll tell you why I'm attacking you.
Steve Bannon,
Jake, you can have a 24/7.
Help push the president's travel ban. He helped pull out.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's one of the fake news items in the book.
Stephen,
I would happen to know better than you would, Jake, about how the travel ban was written. Steve Bannon didn't push the travel ban.
If you would let me ask this question.
No, because you get 24 hours of negative anti-Trump hysterical coverage on this network that led in recent weeks to some spectacularly embarrassing false reporting.
I think the
from your
viewers
network
right now can ascertain who's being hysterical.
The viewers are entitled to have 3 months of the truth. Why don't you just give me 3 minutes to tell you the truth about Donald Trump that I know and then all of our campaign staff know?
Because it's my show and I don't want to do that. So here's my question.
No, but this isn't a courtroom, and I have a right to speak.
Settle down. Calm down.
Jake.
I have a question for you about issues.
But I think the American people deserve to have 2 or 3 minutes of the truth.
And we've let you talk.
No, here's the truth. I travel with Donald Trump all across the country and the world. I would be with the president on a campaign plane with a rally in 20 minutes, and he would be able to come up.
You've already made this point, Stephen.
He'd be able to come up with material.
Yeah, you've already said that. We let you say that at the top.
There was a huge embarrassment for your network.
Stephen.
Just like the huge embarrassment you had when you got the Comey testimony wrong.
Stephen, I'm trying to get to the issue of the president's fitness, which a lot of people are questioning.
And I'm getting to the issue of your fitness. I was booked to talk about the very issues I'm just describing, and you're not even asking about them because they're not interesting facts to you.
That's not true. I have plenty of questions on immigration. You've attempted to filibuster by talking about your flights with the president. I want to ask you a question because
don't be condescending, Jake.
Stephen.
Jake,
the president and the White House.
The reason why I want to talk about
the president and the White House.
The reason why I want to talk about the president's experiences, what I've seen with him traveling to meet dozens of foreign leaders, with his incredible work.
Okay, you're not answering the questions.
No,
I understand.
You have 24 hours a day of anti-Trump material, and you're not going to give 3 minutes for the American people to hear the real experience of Donald Trump.
There's one viewer that you care about right now, and you're being obsequious. You're being a factotum in order to please him. Okay.
No.
And I think I've wasted enough of my viewers' time. Thank you, Stephen. As Republicans, lawmakers call for Attorney General Jeff Sessions to resign. In a major reversal, Democrats are now coming to his defense. What changed?
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/ facebook.com/Humanist Report.